Imagine walking along a peaceful beach, the sound of waves crashing against the shore, when you stumble upon two suitcases. What's inside? Clothes? Belongings? No. Inside are the dismembered remains of two young people. Who put them there, and why? This case is as shocking as it is tragic, and there's much more to uncover. If you're drawn to true crime stories like this one, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new case. The story begins in Seattle, Washington, where Michael Dudley, a landlord in his 60s, owned a modest home that he rented out to tenants. Like many landlords, Dudley seemed to live a quiet, unremarkable life. But behind the walls of his home, a darker story was brewing. Among his tenants were Jessica Lewis and her boyfriend, Austin Wenner, a young couple described by friends as kind-hearted, full of life, and deeply in love. Jessica, often called Jessie by those close to her, worked as a caregiver, and Austin, nicknamed Cash, was known for his friendly, laid-back personality. Together, they were trying to build a life in challenging circumstances. But that life was not without its struggles. Living under Dudley's roof brought its own challenges. Disputes over rent payments and living conditions began to strain their relationship with the landlord. Arguments grew frequent, and neighbors would later recall hearing heated confrontations coming from the home. One neighbor even described the situation as tense, a word that would take on a much darker meaning in the weeks to come. Jessica and Austin's financial difficulties were no secret, but no one could have imagined that a disagreement over money and rent would spiral into something far more sinister. To the outside world, it was just another strained landlord-tenant relationship. But inside that home, something terrible was about to happen. As tensions mounted, the couple likely had no idea that the man they rented from, the man they trusted with providing them shelter, was capable of unimaginable violence. It was a warm summer day in June 2020 when a group of teenagers stumbled upon something they would never forget. Walking along the rocky shoreline of Alki Beach in West Seattle, they spotted two suitcases washed up near the edge of the water. Curious, they opened one. At first, they thought it was just clothes crammed inside, until the unmistakable smell of decay hit them. Panicked, they called 911. When authorities arrived, they confirmed the teenagers' worst fears. Inside the suitcases were human remains, later identified as those of Jessica Lewis and Austin Wenner. The discovery was horrifying, but it was just the beginning of unraveling a nightmare. Who could have done this? And why had the bodies been dismembered and discarded so callously? Investigators quickly pieced together that Jessica and Austin had been missing for weeks. Their families had been searching for answers, never expecting this devastating outcome. Both had suffered brutal gunshot wounds before their bodies were mutilated and stuffed into suitcases. But there was one chilling clue that led detectives straight to their suspect. Traces of blood and forensic evidence linked the crime back to the couple's landlord, Michael Dudley. Inside his home, investigators uncovered a gruesome scene: bullet holes, blood-stained floors, and clear evidence that someone had tried to clean up. The once quiet landlord now found himself at the center of a grisly double murder investigation. While Dudley initially denied any involvement, the evidence was damning. Witness statements, forensic findings, and the horrific state of the home painted a clear picture of what had happened within those walls. But what could drive a man to commit such a heinous act? Was it simply a dispute over money, or something deeper and darker? The discovery of Jessica Lewis and Austin Wenner's remains shocked the quiet community of West Seattle. Investigators wasted no time piecing together the events leading up to their tragic deaths. Their first stop: the home they shared with Michael Dudley, the landlord whose disputes with the couple had become a source of tension for neighbors and friends alike. When detectives entered Dudley's home, they were met with a scene that confirmed their suspicions. Bullet holes in the walls, blood stains on the floors, and haphazard attempts to cover it all up told a story of violence and desperation. But it wasn't just physical evidence that pointed to Dudley. Witnesses came forward, describing loud arguments and even gunshots coming from the property around the time Jessica and Austin went missing. One chilling detail came from a friend of Dudley's who claimed he had asked for help disposing of the bodies. This revelation painted a disturbing picture of a man willing to involve others in his gruesome crime. But despite the mounting evidence, Dudley maintained his innocence, insisting that he had no role in their deaths. Still, investigators pressed on, uncovering a timeline of events that left little room for doubt. They believed that on the night of the murders, a heated argument between Dudley and the couple escalated into violence. It wasn't just about unpaid rent, it was about control, anger, and a breaking point that ended in tragedy. Prosecutors later revealed that Jessica and Austin had likely been killed execution style, their lives brutally cut short over a dispute that should have never ended in bloodshed. And the methodical way in which Dudley disposed of their bodies, dismembering them and packing them into suitcases, showed a chilling level of calculation. But even with a strong case, questions remained. Why did Dudley snap? Was this premeditated, or a crime of passion that spiraled out of control? And what about the neighbors and witnesses? Could more have been done to prevent this tragedy? The investigation was far from straightforward, but one thing was clear: Michael Dudley wasn't the mild-mannered landlord he appeared to be. He was a man with a dark side, capable of turning on those who trusted him most. Michael Dudley was arrested and charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder, but even in custody, he showed little remorse. During his court appearances, Dudley's demeanor remained eerily calm, his expression betraying none of the horror tied to his actions. As the trial began, prosecutors laid out the evidence: bullet holes in the walls, bloodstains on the floor, and testimony from witnesses who recalled Dudley's erratic behavior. One of the most damning pieces of evidence came from Dudley's own attempts to cover up the crime. Witnesses testified that he had offered money to friends, asking for help in disposing of the bodies. This, paired with the forensic evidence found in his home, painted a chilling picture of premeditation and callousness. Throughout the trial, Dudley's defense team argued that he acted out of fear and self-defense, claiming that Jessica and Austin were aggressive and threatening him. But this narrative didn't hold up under scrutiny. The evidence showed that the couple had been shot execution style, their lives taken in a way that suggested rage and control, not self-preservation. Family members of Jessica and Austin spoke out during the proceedings, describing the devastating impact of losing their loved ones in such a horrific way. Jessica's mother tearfully recounted her daughter's compassionate nature and her dedication to her caregiving job, while Austin's family remembered his warmth and easygoing personality. Their voices served as a reminder that this case wasn't just about crime, it was about the lives that had been stolen. In the end, the jury found Michael Dudley guilty, and he was sentenced to serve time for his heinous acts. But for many, justice felt incomplete. Jessica and Austin's families were left to pick up the pieces, haunted by the knowledge of what their loved ones endured. The community, too, was shaken by the crime. Neighbors questioned whether more could have been done to intervene. Could someone have prevented the escalating tension that ultimately led to tragedy? These unanswered questions lingered long after the trial ended. Dudley's case stands as a chilling reminder of how quickly everyday disputes can spiral into violence, and how dangerous it can be when trust is misplaced. For Jessica Lewis and Austin Wenner, the home they thought would be a safe haven became the setting for their darkest nightmare. Michael Dudley's actions shattered lives and left an indelible scar on a community. What began as a landlord-tenant dispute ended in unimaginable violence, raising questions about trust, control, and the darkness some people are capable of hiding in plain sight. Jessica Lewis and Austin Wenner were more than victims in a tragic story, they were beloved family members, friends, and partners whose lives were taken far too soon. Their memory serves as a somber reminder to cherish those we love and to remain vigilant about the relationships we form. But even now, questions linger. What drove Michael Dudley to such extremes? Was this a calculated act, or the result of years of unchecked anger and desperation? And could anything have been done to stop it before it was too late? As we close this chapter, let's remember the importance of awareness and compassion, both for ourselves and for those around us. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Together, we can continue to explore these haunting cases and the lessons they leave behind. Subscribe now, and join us as we dive deeper into the world of true crime every week. If you have thoughts or theories about this case, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Stay safe, stay curious, and remember, the darkest stories often hide in plain sight.